From Crimson Arc Media, on behalf of the people of Baha, I present to you the Spiritual Ledger. Hello, I am Joshua Adams, and thank you for joining me on this second episode of the Kitab-i-Ahd series. As you recall, in the first episode, we went over a brief introduction as to the covenant of God, what a covenant generally is, trusteeship as a leadership model instead of a domination model, and how wills and testaments work within Baha'u'llah's writings. Keep those things in mind as we proceed through the first paragraph, and I hope that what comes next is insightful for you. Now I will read the first paragraph of the Kitab-i-Ahd. The most exalted horizon has been free from the ornaments of this world. Yet, within the treasuries of trust in God and complete surrender to His will, we have left for the heirs an incomparable inheritance. We left behind no earthly treasure, nor did we add to anyone's burden. By God, within material wealth lie hidden fear and concealed danger. Consider this carefully, and remember what the All-Merciful revealed in the Furqan. Woe to every slanderer and backbiter, who amasses wealth and keeps counting it. The wealth of this world possesses no lasting fidelity. Whatever is overtaken by decay and subject to change has never been, nor is it now, worthy of more than a limited measure of regard. As we can see, Baha'u'llah, within his covenants, shares the danger of focusing and emphasizing on earthly treasure. This goes contrary to the common idea behind, a will and testament, that we must leave behind some inheritance. And of course, the Kitab-i-Ahd does outline how to do so in the absence of a will. But yet, when a person passes away, if we're focused on what we receive, that can induce fear among family members. It can breed oppression, and it can tarnish the legacy of who has just passed. Now let's compare it to what Baha'u'llah testifies is leaving behind. The true wealth is a detachment from gold, which liberates the soul and requires complete surrender. It's eternal and stored in the treasuries of trust in God. As Baha'u'llah says in the hidden words, you desire gold, and I desire your sanctification from it. When Baha'u'llah discusses the hidden fear and concealed danger, in my book, Achieving True Liberation, I wrote a chapter about the private self, focused heavily on the desires that we have, which can become illusions or veils that can prevent the mirror of our soul from reflecting God's attributes more purely. And one of the broad categories of illusions is status. Status can take many forms, but wealth is a very large component of social status. It's one way that we place ourselves above others. There's this illusion that we can be entirely self-sufficient instead of remembering that all that we have is born from God's creation, God's bounty, and God's grace. So, what might the mighty barrier be? This barrier of gold? Um, I say the solution comes from Baha'u'llah himself, to spend your wealth upon the poor. Yet offering your soul is even more beautiful. That's why throughout the scriptures of all religion that I know of, charity is enjoined upon everyone. Some traditions call it tithing, others zakat. And Baha'u'llah enjoins both zakat and hukukillah, which is called the right of God. It's a way to pay it forward because God gave you something, and it's okay to give back in some way. And giving back actually really helps our psychology more than it does to hoard. So we see in this example from Baha'u'llah's covenants that the hoarder, there's the danger of slander, backbiting, and let's face it, those are very oppressive and dangerous acts that contributes to the degradation of the social life of a community or the well-being of the family. Uh, Obsessive counting, that testifies more to the desire of trying to control every outcome, placing the reliance on yourself versus trusting God that, you'll have your provision. So, how do we redefine true wealth? I think that the short obligatory prayer from Baha'u'llah outlines it quite well. Um, each time you say it, you testify to my poverty and your wealth. Um, and, when you say prayer, like sincerely, not because you're under obligation to do so, but because the words that you're saying actually is like you're having a conversation to God, and like you are testifying to Him that I am poor, no matter what material wealth I have. It is transformative. You can start truly embodying the idea that you can be free of need. Um, it doesn't happen automatically, though, just because you say it. Um, but at some point, there will be opportunities to feel it. And this quote from the Quran, I mean, it exemplifies it perfectly. O mankind, you are those in need of Allah, while Allah is the free of need, the praiseworthy. So if we look past that this slide has some artifacts that Notebook LM provided, there's no such thing as Tauth. um, let's look at fidelity. Fidelity is actually a pretty important virtue, but there is an illusion of what we could have fidelity to. Baha'u'llah regularly enjoins upon us to immerse ourselves in the most great ocean, which is God's revelation. to be true to that belief by acting upon it. You might wonder, why would Baha'u'llah's covenant open with such a profound statement about wealth? And it's because the desire of status, this illusion of fidelity to status, social norms, or whatever, it takes away our fidelity to God's own intention. And as we explore the Book of the Covenant more thoroughly in future episodes, we can maybe see the link. When we think about the wills and testaments, these are executed because someone has passed away. And I find it quite fitting that Baha'u'llah reminds us that the wealth that we accumulate, we cannot take with us on our journey towards God in the next spiritual worlds. It will all be rolled up. And he says in the Kitab-i-Ahd, O people, where are your past days, and where are your vanished years? When we do the spiritual practice of reflection, one of the themes of reflection is about our life cycle. How have we spent our time? What is our legacy? As you noted in the prior episode, how we wish to be remembered is the second component of the will and testament. So what endures? It's your soul. And perhaps a key component of our soul is how the people who are left behind remember us. So you might be thinking, does God wish us to have no wealth at all? Should we just live our lives in, say, isolation? So this graphic here shows two extreme points. On the left is asceticism and monasticism, which Baha'u'llah prohibits. And on the right side, we have materialism and hoarding, which Baha'u'llah heavily warns against. So between these two extremes, we find the point of moderation. And Baha'u'llah says to find the middle way in everything. So what is the middle way when we consider wealth? The middle way here is ruled by the idea of detachment. And when you're detached from the material outcomes, you can maybe better see your role as accumulating wealth as a trustee. If you remember the witnessing, trustee, and helper model. So an example of this trusteeship would be how we view Earth as a sacred trust. In the first video, we defined the sacred trust within the dominion, the kingdom, and the realm of power. When we focus so much on wealth, where does that wealth come from? It can only come from Earth. We can either extract as many resources as possible, but that might compromise future generations from being able to use them. So what do we witness in how we utilize resources? or even how we treat the people who help us earn our income. So when we view how we accumulate wealth or use wealth as a trustee, we see that other hearts and people, maybe they deserve some type of minimum provision. And provision could be, food, water, shelter, or even things beyond that. Uh, I would remind you of the golden rule on that, to treat others more than yourself, or the teaching of Jesus Christ, to love others more than yourself. And that leads us to how we help. Once we've witnessed and have committed to be a trustee instead of detached from the well-being of others, we rely on God to help support and trust that whatever we give back, it's not a loss to ourselves. This graphic, the spiritual ledger, helps provide a simple way to compare a material illusion from spiritual reality. So if we look at this first paragraph of the Kitab-i-Ahd, we can see that the material illusion that Baha'u'llah is testifying to is earthly treasures add to the human burden. But the spiritual reality is, if we surrender, we have a burdenless inheritance. The material illusion is wealth that conceals fear and breeds oppression, such as slandering. Whereas spirituality is detachment removes the barrier. The illusion is that matter decays. It has no lasting fidelity. Spiritual reality is the soul must practice a limited measure of regard to maintain its eternal trajectory through the spiritual worlds. I tell you, this is part of the covenant of Baha'u'llah. So this leads us to perhaps one of the purposes of Baha'u'llah's covenant. In this first paragraph, we see that Baha'u'llah is concerned about our liberation, just as he is throughout the entire corpus of his revelation. So to quote from my book, to have liberation, we need to be responsible for another's liberation. That refusal to surrender responsibility is where trusteeship becomes real. So true wealth is not found in the accumulation of decaying matter, but in the faithful execution of our sacred trusts. Behind the fear of the ledger, and step into the incomparable inheritance of the most exalted horizon. So I appreciate you joining me, and I hope that you continue to do so on the next presentation. Feel free to like and subscribe, leave your comments, and I want to state, my interpretation, it's not infallible. So I invite you to also share your perspectives on this paragraph. It will greatly be appreciated. Because remember, you're also a person of Baha. We're all equal in this. Thank you.